I was 3 weeks into the worst assignment of my life when I met her, and all I had to my name was a faulty translator, a half-rusted cargo hauler, and a sandwich wrapped in wax paper. Outpost K, 47 hung at the edge of civilized space like a forgotten thought. It orbited a red dwarf that flickered unpredictably, bathing the station in pulses of dim crimson light. No banners, no welcoming beacons. Just a rotating cylinder of patched metal and old mistakes. Humans called it a free port, which was a polite way of saying no one with better options came here. I'd come because I didn't have better options. My name is Elias Trent, former systems engineer for the Terran colonial fleet, dishonorably discharged for punching a superior officer who thought cutting life support margins was efficient. Since then, I'd been hauling cargo, fixing broken things for people who couldn't afford to ask questions, and trying very hard not to think about how far I'd fallen. The station's market ring was crowded that cycle. Species from half a dozen star systems haggled, traded, and argued in overlapping languages. The air smelled like hot metal, alien spices, and ozone from a failing power conduit overhead. I was leaning against a stall, chewing slowly on my lunch, when I noticed her. She was sitting on the floor near the maintenance access, knees drawn to her chest, arms wrapped around herself. Young, at least by human standards. Slight frame. Skin a deep shade of indigo, almost black in the station's dim light, with faint silver patterns tracing her cheekbones and temples. Her hair, or what passed for it, fell in soft, pale tendrils that shifted color as she moved. No one paid her any attention. That, more than anything else, caught my eye. On K, 47, anything unusual drew stares. But people walked around her like she was part of the floor plating. I watched her for a minute, pretending not to. Her eyes followed the movement of the crowd, sharp and alert. But there was something else there too. Hunger, maybe. Or exhaustion. She looked tired, in a way that went deeper than missed meals. I sighed, peeled back the wax paper, and looked at my sandwich. Synth bread, protein slab, a smear of algae paste. Not exactly gourmet, but it was food. Don't be an idiot, Elias, I muttered to myself. Then I walked over anyway. I crouched a few feet from her, careful not to startle her, and held out the sandwich. Hey, you look like you could use this. Her eyes snapped to me instantly. They were a bright, luminous silver, too bright, reflecting the light in a way that made my translator buzz softly in my ear. She didn't take the sandwich. Instead, she tilted her head, studying me like I was a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit. Why? She asked, her words slightly delayed and oddly formal as the translator struggled to keep up. I shrugged. Because you're hungry. And I have extra. That is inefficient, she said. I almost laughed. Yeah, well. Humans are known for efficiency. For a long moment, she just stared at the sandwich. Then, slowly, as if accepting a dangerous bargain, she reached out and took it. Her fingers brushed mine, cool, faintly vibrating, like something humming just under the skin. She unwrapped it cautiously, sniffed it once, and took a small bite. Her eyes widened. This is acceptable, she said, then took a much bigger bite. I leaned back against the bulkhead, arms crossed, and watched her eat. She didn't devour it like someone starving, but she didn't savor it either. It was as if eating was a task she'd neglected too long and was now correcting. When she finished, she carefully folded the wax paper and handed it back to me. Thank you, she said. You have committed an act of unrequested kindness. Yeah, I said. It's kind of a human specialty. Sometimes. She looked at me again, more intently this time. You are not from this station. Nope. Just passing through. Then you should leave soon, she said calmly. This place is unstable. I snorted. You noticed that too, huh? She didn't smile. Instability invites collapse. Before I could respond, a deep, resonant tone echoed through the market ring. Not an alarm, something older, heavier. Conversations faltered. Vendors fell silent. Even the ever-present hum of the station seemed to dim. The young woman stood. The change was immediate and unsettling. She straightened, shoulders back, chin lifted. The faint silver patterns on her skin brightened, flowing like living light. The air around her seemed to thicken, pressing against my chest. Every being in the market turned toward her. I felt it then, a pressure in my skull, like gravity shifting direction. My translator screamed with feedback before going dead. A voice filled the ring, not loud but absolute, resonating directly in my mind. Enough. Kneeling followed, not gradually, instinctively. Massive reptilian traders, towering insectoid mercenaries, sleek avian diplomats, all dropped to the floor in unison. I stayed standing, not because I was brave, because my legs refused to move. The young woman turned to look at me, genuine surprise flickering across her features. Huh, she said, aloud this time. You did not kneel. Wasn't exactly given instructions. I managed. Around us, armored figures poured into the ring. Sleek black exosuits bearing sigils I didn't recognize, moving with disciplined precision. They formed a perimeter, weapons lowered but ready. One of them approached and dropped to one knee before her. Your Radiance. We have located you at last. She sighed. I told you not to make a scene. The galaxy is already a scene, the figure replied. Your disappearance destabilized 17 major coalitions. She waved a hand dismissively. They will recover. My brain finally caught up with what my eyes were seeing. I said weakly. Did he just call you your Radiance? She looked at me again, something like embarrassment crossing her face. Yes. And did he just say your disappearance destabilized the galaxy? Yes. Okay, I said. I think I missed a step. She studied me for a long moment, then turned back to the kneeling figure. Stand. All of you. You are frightening the locals. They are not locals, the figure said carefully. They are subjects. That word hit harder than any weapon. She turned back to me. I suppose you should know, she said. My name is Asha Varelian. By hereditary mandate, neural consensus, and conquest deferred, I am the sovereign axis of the Triarch Compact. I stared at her. She stared back. I rule approximately 68% of the known galaxy, she added, as if clarifying a minor detail. I opened my mouth, closed it, then left. It burst out of me, loud and incredulous, echoing through the stunned silence of the market ring. You're telling me, I said between breaths, that I just gave a sandwich to the ruler of the galaxy? She frowned slightly. Yes. Huh. That was all I had. They escorted us, somehow, to a secure chamber near the station's core. The guards sealed the doors, and the ambient noise of the station faded to a distant hum. Asha sat on one of the utilitarian benches, feet dangling slightly off the floor, looking suddenly very young again. I apologize, she said quietly. This was not how I intended our interaction to continue. No offense, I said, rubbing my temples, but this is not how I intended my day to go. She tilted her head. You are distressed. Yeah, I said. That tends to happen when reality jumps the rails. She considered that. You did not treat me as a ruler. Didn't know you were one. Even so, many would have sensed it. I shrugged. You looked like someone who needed lunch. Something shifted in her expression then, something soft, almost vulnerable. That is why I left, she admitted. Out there, beyond the courts and fleets and endless petitions, I could exist without being elevated. Sounds lonely, I said. It is, she agreed. But it is also quiet. There was a pause. Why me? She asked suddenly. Of all the beings in that ring, why offer me sustenance? I thought about it. The honest answer surprised me. Because no one else did. She nodded slowly. That is consistent with my observations. The guards returned an hour later. The station governor arrived soon after, pale and sweating, babbling apologies and offers of fealty. Asha endured it all with practiced patience, issuing calm directives that would, apparently, reshape trade routes and political hierarchies with a few sentences. Before she left, she turned to me. Elias Trent, she said. You will accompany us. I blinked. I will what? You have shown me something rare, she said. Unfiltered kindness. Perspective unburdened by power. I find this valuable. I'm not exactly galaxy-ruling material, I said. That, she replied, is precisely why you are. The transport that carried us away from Outpost K-47 was larger than anything I'd ever been on. As the station shrank into the distance, I felt the weight of what I was leaving and what I was heading toward. Just so we're clear, I said, glancing at her as stars stretched into lines. I still don't kneel. She smiled then. Truly smiled. Good, she said. The galaxy has enough people on their knees. And somewhere between the hum of the engines and the impossible future unfolding ahead of me, I realized that a single sandwich, offered without expectation, had changed everything. The first thing I learned about living at the center of the galaxy was that power had a smell. It wasn't metaphorical. It was ozone, polished alloys, recycled air filtered 1,000 times over, and the faint, ever-present hum of systems so advanced I couldn't even guess their purpose. Asha's flagship, the Radiant Accord, was less a ship and more a moving capital city. Entire districts rotated within it, gravity shifting smoothly as we passed through vast corridors lined with translucent walls that showed stars sliding by like distant thoughts. Everywhere we went being stopped. Not just guards or officials, everyone. Conversations died mid-sentence. Heads bowed. Some knelt. I did none of those things. At first, I thought someone would force me to. That a guard would step out of line and correct my behavior. But no one did. They noticed, certainly. I felt eyes on me constantly, curious, confused, sometimes offended. A few looked hopeful. Asha noticed too. You are disrupting expectations, she said as we walked side by side through a grand hall where banners of light displayed shifting symbols of the Triarch Compact. Story of my life, I replied. She glanced at me, amused. They are uncertain how to categorize you. Tell them I'm your lunch consultant. She let out a soft, surprised laugh. It echoed faintly in the vaulted space, and several nearby officials froze in visible shock. That, I realized, was the real danger of power. Not cruelty. Not corruption. Distance. Asha spent days, weeks, buried in councils and negotiations. I watched from the edges of rooms where entire star systems were debated like accounting errors. Borders moved. Fleets repositioned. Civilizations held their breath. And through it all, I saw the cracks. She listened more than she spoke. She weighed every word like it might collapse a star. When she finally issued commands, they were precise, devastatingly effective, and utterly exhausting. One night cycle, I found her alone in a private observation chamber, staring out at a spiral galaxy rotating slowly on a holographic plane. They fear me, she said without turning. Comes with a job, I replied, leaning against the doorway. People fear storms too. doesn't mean the rain's evil. She considered that. You reduce cosmic authority to weather metaphors. I reduce everything to something I understand, I said. It's how I survive. She turned to face me. The silver patterns along her skin were dimmer tonight, like embers after a fire. Do you know why my kind rules? She asked. Superior tech? Longer lifespans? Glowy skin. She almost smiled. We were the first to unify without erasing difference. The first to choose consensus over annihilation. The galaxy followed reluctantly. And now, she said softly, I wonder if we have become too distant to remember why they followed at all. I thought of Outpost K-47, of her sitting on the floor, invisible, of how easily the galaxy's ruler could vanish into the cracks of her own empire. You don't need to stop ruling, I said. You just need to be seen as someone who still remembers hunger. Her eyes met mine, sharp and searching. That is why you are here, she said. It wasn't a question. The crisis came without warning. A border coalition, one that had never accepted the Compact's authority, launched a coordinated secession backed by experimental weaponry. Not conquest. Not rebellion. Refusal. Council screamed for retaliation. Admirals demanded permission to end the threat before it spread. The simulations were clear. Decisive force would preserve order. Mercy would invite collapse. Asha listened in silence. Then she dismissed them all. Alone with me in the strategy chamber, she paced, hands clasped behind her back. If I crush them, I prove every fear correct, she said. If I do nothing, the Compact fractures. Those aren't the only options, I said. She stopped. They are the only ones ever chosen. Yeah, I replied. And look how tired everyone is. I told her about Earth, about how humans nearly tore themselves apart over lines drawn on maps, about how the worst wars weren't fought because people hated each other, but because no one believed they'd be heard. They don't want to rule, I said. They want to matter. Asha was quiet for a long time. Then she did something no sovereign axis had done in recorded history. She went herself. No armada. No ultimatum. Just a single ship, a neutral broadcast, and an open channel. I stood beside her as she addressed the coalition's leaders, wary, defiant, terrified. I will not threaten you, she said evenly. Nor will I abandon the Compact. But I will listen. They argued, accused, demanded. She listened. Hours turned into days. I watched her shoulders slump when the channel finally closed. They did not agree, she said. No, I said. But they talked. The next cycles were chaos. Other systems followed suit, not in rebellion but in dialogue. Grievances long buried surfaced. Old wounds reopened. The Compact bent, reshaped, nearly broke. But it didn't shatter. Months later, as the galaxy settled into something messier but more honest, Asha and I stood once more at an observation window. You could leave, she said quietly. You owe me nothing. I thought about the cargo hauler I'd abandoned, about anonymity, about how simple life had seemed before a sandwich changed everything. Someone's got to remind you you're allowed to be tired, I said. And hungry. She smiled, warm and real. Then stay, she said. Not as subject, not as symbol. As someone who once saw me before the galaxy did. I stayed. And sometimes, when the halls were quiet and the stars felt close enough to touch, I'd hand the ruler of most of the known universe a simple meal and watch her remember that power, at its best, was just another way of caring who went hungry.